Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We'll be learning today Mirtz Hashem Daf Mem Ches Amid Beis and hopefully part of Mem Tes Amid Aleph as well. We begin on Mem Ches Amid Aleph in the bottom line with a brand new Siman. Of course, we're continuing to learn Hilchas Tainus, and we pick up today with Siman Taf Kuf Ayin Hey Dine Tainiyos Shemispalalin Be'eretz Yisroel Al Hagishamim. The halachos that pertain to the series of Tanesim, of fast days, that the Chachamim would be geyser in Eretz Yisroel when there was a drought. We know that the pasuk says about Eretz Yisroel, Umtar HaShamayim Tishtamoyim, that Eretz Yisroel lives by rainfall. Eretz Yisroel is the land Asher HaKadosh Baruch Hu Darish Eisai Tamid. The Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of Eretz Yisroel on a personal level constantly. So Eretz Yisroel, the truth is, like all of us, we're thoroughly dependent on the Rachmanis of the Rebbeinu Shalom. But in Eretz Yisroel, you see it more frequently and more directly. So in Eretz Yisroel, you need rain. If you don't have rain, you have a big problem. And there's a distinct rainy season. The rainy season begins in the month of Cheshvan. So if there's a drought and there's no rain, you have a huge problem. And the Chazal would be geyser tanesim. There would be geyser series of fast days to be mispal for rain. And that's the topic of this siman. Says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph. Seder Taniyos Shemis Anin Be'eretz Yisrael Al Gishamim Kahu. The order of tanesim of fast days that you would fast in Eretz Yisrael over a drought, this is how they work. Higia Shiva Asa B'mar Cheshvan, if you reach the 17th day of the month of Cheshvan, V'lo Yardu Gishamim, and you have not yet experienced rainfall, Maschilin Talmidei Chachamim Bilvad Lehisanois Shloisha Taniyos. At that point in time, you reach the 17th of Cheshvan and no rain. At that point in time, the Talmidei Chachamim, not the whole tzibur, only the Talmidei Chachamim, they begin to fast. Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni, they fast 3 fast days. They fast Pahab, Monday, Thursday, Monday. V'chol hatalmidim ru'uyim l'kach, anyone who is considered a Talmid Chacham, and we'll see who that is in the Mishnah Berurah, anyone who is considered a Talmid Chacham is supposed to fast those 3 fast days. V'din tainiyos elu kedin tainis yachid, and the status, the halacha of these fast days is that they're similar to a tainis yachid, not a tainis tzibur. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, back on Mem Ches Amid Aleph, Ois Katan Aleph. Excuse me. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Shemis Anin Be'eretz Yisroel, these are the fast days that take place in Eretz Yisroel. We don't have fasts like this in Chutz La'aretz, only in Eretz Yisroel. Ba'ala Afuke Shar Mekamos, this stands in contrast to other areas, Ukidolakaman B'Sif Tes, as we're going to discuss later on in Sif Tes. There is a concept of fasting for a drought in other areas as well. However, the halachos over there are different than the halachos in Eretz Yisroel. The order of the fasts that we're going to discuss now, when you fast them and when you don't, etc., these halachos pertain to Eretz Yisroel. In Sif Tes, we'll discuss fasts out of Eretz Yisroel. Turning to Mem Ches Amid Beis, Mishnah Berurah is cutting Beis. Maschilin Talmidei Chachamim. The Talmidei Chachamim begin to fast on the 17th day of Cheshvan. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hainu afilu b'yom yud zayin gufa. We don't have to wait until a full 17 days pass. We don't have to wait until the 18th day of Cheshvan. Already on the 17th day of Cheshvan, the Talmidei Chachamim could begin to fast if that's a Monday. V'chein mashma b'bir agrabas if tes, and so it is implied in the words of the Gra. Ois Katan Gimel, v'chal hatalmidim. The Mechaber made the statement that all Talmidei Chachamim should fast. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Hainu, what the Mechaber wants to tell you here is, Shechiyavhu al kol Talmud, that this obligation to fast on behalf of the tzibur because of a drought, it pertains to every Talmid Chacham. Vein yachal lahafkia atzmai loymar poter ani. Nobody who's sitting and learning Torah, nobody has the right to turn around and say, I'm not included. I don't have to fast. No. V'chol Talmud. That's what the Mechaber says. V'chol ha-talmidim ru'iyim l'kach. Everybody has to fast. Now, who is considered a Talmid Chacham in the context of this halacha? Says the Chavetz Chaim, Then he brings this down from the Magen Avram. V'dafka kisheshayelim oisai dvar halacha b'talmudai. We're speaking about a Talmud Chacham who's on the level where you can ask him a shaila in halacha on the topic that he's learning. V'oimra, and he has what to say. Da'azhu b'chlal Talmud Chacham, then he's considered a Talmud Chacham, at least in the context of this halacha. V'chayiv lahaschil lehisanois, and he's obligated to join in the fast of the Talmidei Chachamim for the tzibur, for geshamim, for rain. Avalim lo yigia l'chlal kach, if he's not yet at that level where you could go ask him a shaila at least on what he's learning, einenu mechuyev lehisanois, then he's not on the madrega of a Talmud Chacham to have to fast these tanesim. Elo she'im rotza misana ve'eid by mishum yuara. Since he's still sitting in the Bismedrish and learning, even though he's not on the madrega of the Talmud Chacham that you could ask a shaila to, if he wants to join the fast, he has the right to join the fast. And we don't say that if he does, he's mersi ki yuara, that he's making himself look like a big shot. It's a gaiva issue. We don't have that, because first he is sitting in the Bismedrish and learning. But nobody else it's not proper for them to join in these tanesim. So if an accountant, a very nice, wonderful accountant, who goes to the Daf Yomi share in the morning and to the Dirshu halacha share at night, so he's a wonderful erlich yid, if he's going to see that the Talmidei Chachamim are fasting, and he thinks he's doing a good thing, he's going to say, you know what, I'm going to fast together with the Talmidei Chachamim. Says the Chavetz Chaim, no, he has no right to do that. Avakol sharo dameina rashay, the haroya shemesaneh, because somebody who sees that Yankel was fasting, they're going to understand that the reason he's fasting is because of the drought, and he's joining the Talmidei Chachamim in their fast. And then he's making himself look like a Talmud Chacham, and he's not. He's not a Talmud Chacham, so why is he joining in their fast? That's already a gaiva issue. He's not allowed to do that. Now, this is very, very interesting. What jumps out at me from this halacha over here, where the Talmidei Chachamim begin to fast before anybody else, you see the role that the Talmidei Chachamim play. The Talmidei Chachamim have the achrayus of the tzibur on them. If you see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is displeased with Klal Yisrael, chas v'chalila, and you see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is not bringing rain, so who is it that has to turn to the Rebbeinu Shalom and fast and be mispal that the Rebbeinu Shalom should have rachmanis? It's the Talmidei Chachamim. Those are the ones who have to do it before anybody else. So the first tanesim that we have over here are carried out by the Talmidei Chachamim, who carry the achrayus of the tzibur on their backs. Reis Katan Daled, the Mechaber said that the status of these three tanesim, these have the status of a tainus yochid, not of a tainus tzibur. What does that mean? Says the Mishnah Berurah here, Reis Katan Daled, kedin tainus yochid, hainu le'inyan shamafsikim behem b'Rosh Chodesh v'Chanukah u'Purim im paga be'elu hayamim. One difference that we saw already previously between a tainus yochid and a tainus tzibur. We learned the halacha. Let's say a yochid, an individual, makes a kabbalas tainus, and he says, I'm being mekabel tainus to fast Monday, Thursday, and Monday. I'm going to fast bahab. But he failed to consult the calendar. Then he looks at the calendar and he realizes that one of those days ends up a Rosh Chodesh. Let's say this week, Monday is Rosh Chodesh. So let's say last week somebody was mekabel tainus, he's going to fast bahab. And he didn't realize that tomorrow, Monday, is Rosh Chodesh. Since he's a yachid, he's mafsik. He doesn't fast on the Monday of Rosh Chodesh. Not so by a tzibur. If a tzibur is geyser a tainus for bahab, and they begin to fast the series of tanesim, and then they realize that one of those days is Rosh Chodesh, then we said that the tzibur is not mafsik. So the Mechaber is telling us over here, these first tanesim for geshamim that are fasted by the Talmidei Chachamim have the status of a tainus yochid. And therefore, if a Rosh Chodesh would fall out in that series of tanesim, you would be mafsik. Umashe Enken continues the Chavetz Chaim here. Umashe Enken tainus tzibur k'dela'el b'siman tov k'fayin beis. And continues the Chavetz Chaim. There's another difference. There's another ramification of the fact that we're calling these tanesim a tainus yochid. We learned in Siman Tov Samach Vav that when it comes to Kabbalas HaTainus, We know that the tainus of a yachid, if an individual is makabel tainus on himself, he has to make a kabbalah's tainus by mincha the day before in order for his tainus to be a valid tainus. Not so with a tainus tzibur. When the chachamim are geyser a tainus on the tzibur, then the individuals do not require a kabbalah's tainus. Over here, by these three tanesim that the Talmidei Chachamim fast, they require a kabbalah's tainus. This is what I just explained. So I misspoke a little bit over here. Let's go back in this Mishnah Berurah. It said, the Chavetz Chaim said, the Gamle Inyan Masha Mavur B'Siman Tov Kuf Samach Vav Ayin Sham. He says that another difference between, another ramification of the fact that we call these Tanesim or Tanis Yachid is legabe what we discussed in Siman Tov Kuf Samach Vav. I said that that's referring to the concept of Kabbalah's HaTainis. Not so. What we just discussed in Siman Tov Kuf Samach Vav is the question of saying Anenu and laning Vayechal. By a Tainus Tzibur, you say Anenu in Shemona Esrei, and the Shliach Tzibur inserts a special bracha between the bracha of Gal Yisrael and the bracha of Rifa'inu. That's only by a Tainus Tzibur, not by a Tainus Yachid. We said in the Mishnah Berurah earlier that a Yachid, when he has a Tainus, he could recite Anenu without a Chasima. He could insert the tefillah of Anenu into Shema Keleinu. So too, by these Tanesim have the status of a Tainus Yachid, and therefore the Talmidei Chachamim that are fasting, they could recite Anenu within the bracha of Shemaya Tefillah. However, you would not recite an extra bracha, a 20th bracha in Shemona Esrei of Anenu. And also, you would not lein Vayechal. On the Tainus Tzibur, you lein Vayechal. On the Tainus Yachid, you do not. Okay. Now let's go to Siv Beis. Says the Mechaber. Second line. Higia Rosh Chodesh Kislev v'lo yardu geshamim. Okay, so he said that Cheshvan is the beginning of the rainy season. So Cheshvan began, there was no rain. On the 17th day of Cheshvan, the Talmidei Chachamim started to fast. They fasted 3 Tanesim, Monday, Thursday, and Monday. Now already we hit Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and there's still no rain. So at that point, says the Mechaber, Bezdin Geizrin Shloisha Taniyos al Hatzibur. Now Bezdin will decree 3 fast days on the tzibur. Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. Bezdin is going to be geyser a fast of Bahab after Rosh Chodesh Kislev on the tzibur. V'chala am nichnasim lebate knesiyos. Everybody comes to shul, umispalalim, and they daven for rain. V'zayakim, and they cry out to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Umischanenim, and they daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom for rain. Kederech sha'isim b'chal hatanyos. They daven the way we daven on every fast day. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Hey, Umischanenim kederech. The Mechaber said over here, Umischanenim, we daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom, kederech she'oisa b'chal hatanyos, the way we daven on a tainus. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Hey, Ubechalal zeh hakriya vayechal b'shachris umincha kishar tanyos. You have to lein vayechal. So this becomes a regular tainus tzibur. We're going to say Anenu, and they're going to lein vayechal, like a regular tainus tzibur. Now we go to Siv Gimel. So that's the middle. So far we have 3 tanesim that begin on the 17th of Cheshvan that only Talmidei Chachamim fast. Now we have 3 tanesim that the whole tzibur fasts, and these are considered a regular tainus tzibur, and that begins after Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Now we go to Siv Gimel. Avru elu v'lo nanu. Let's say they fasted these 3 tanis tziburs at the beginning of Kislev, and still no rain. At that point, Bezdin Geizrin oid shloisha tanyos ala tzibur sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. Now, Bezdin is going to decree another 3 tanesim on the tzibur. So we had 1 series of Bahab, and unfortunately the Rebbeinu Shalom did not answer. He didn't bring rain. So now Bezdin is geyser another set of Bahab, another set of 3 tanesim. But these second 3 tanesim that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur are more chamer, they're more stringent than the first 3. How so? Says the Mechaber, Uba'elu, by this second set of Bahab, Mafsikin milechol miba'od yoim. These are like Tisha B'Av. Over here we have to stop eating the night before. The tainus doesn't begin in the morning. The tainus begins at Shkia the night before. And, continues the Mechaber, V'asurim behem ba'asiyas malacha b'yoyim, and during the day you have an issa malacha. You're not allowed to do malacha during the day by these tanesim. Avaloi balayla, but there's no issa malacha at night. And furthermore, V'asurim b'rechitzas kala guf b'chamin, you're not allowed to bathe your entire body with hot water. Lefikach, therefore, noyalin es amarchatzais, we closed the communal bathhouses. Alvapanav yadav araglov b'chamin, you're allowed to wash your face and your hands in hot water. V'chol gufay, and you could wash your entire body b'tzayin and mutter. These types of washing would be mutter on these fast days. V'asurim b'sicha, you're not allowed to anoint or smear anything on your body. Ela im kenhu laha'avir es hazuama, unless you're doing it to remove some kind of dirt or some kind of odoriferous situation. And furthermore, v'asurim behem b'tashmish hamita, marital relations are prohibited on these fast days. V'chein aser b'neilas asandal ba'ir, and people who live in the city are not allowed to wear shoes. People who live out in the countryside where it's muddy and rocky, they could wear shoes. Umispalelin b'batei kneisiyos, and you come into the shuls to daven. Umischadenin kibishar taniyos, and you daven in the way that you would do by other tanesim. So over here in Sif Gimel, the Mechaber has laid out for us. We saw so far 17th of Cheshvan. If there's no rain, the Talmidei Chachamim fast Pahab. Rosh Chodesh Kislev, there's still no rain, then Bezdin is geyser one series of Tanesim of Bahab on the Tzibur. That series of Tanesim are like a regular Tainus Tzibur. The Tainus begins in the morning. There's no Isser Malacha. There's no Isser Rechitza. There's no Isser Sicha. There's no Isser Tashvish Hamita. You don't have any of these Isurim. Then, if there's no rain after that series of Tanesim, then Bezdin is geyser another set of Bahab Tanesim, and the second set is more Chamer. The fast begins like Tisha B'Av, it begins the night before. It brings with it an Isser Malacha. It brings with it an Isser Rechitza, where you're not allowed to wash your entire body in hot water. It brings with it an Isser of Tashvish Hamita. It brings with it an Isser of Sicha, of anointing yourself. It brings with it an Isser of Ne'ilas HaSandal. So this second set of Bahab Tanesim on the Tzibur is much more Chamer. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Katan Vav, Mi ba'oid yoim. These fasts, you have to start fasting already the night before. Hainu deben hashmasha shaloi aser. This means that the tainus begins at Shkia, and the area of the time period of twilight between Shkia and Seisa Kechavim is already aser. The fast begins at Shkia. Ve'ein tzarich lahaisif yoser. But there's no inyan to be moisif on the tainus. You don't have to begin the tainus before Shkia, let's say like you do on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, you don't start fasting at exactly Shkia. You have to be Moisef a little bit before Shkia. Over here, you don't have to be Moisef, but the tainus begins at Shkia the night before. Ois Katan Zayin, the Mechaber said you're not allowed to anoint yourself. Sicha is aser unless it's laha'avir es hazuama. Certainly if you have scabs on your scalp and you need to smear some kind of salve on the scalps, you're allowed to do that. And you are also Tashvish Hamita, marital relations are prohibited on these Tanesim. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Afilu Adayin ein Rav ba'olam. We saw earlier that Tashvish Hamita, marital relations, are always forbidden during a time of hunger. So the Chavetz Chaim is pointing out over here, when the Mechaber tells us that Tashvish Hamita is aser on this second set of Tanesim v'Gishamim, it doesn't mean that due to the drought, there's already a Rav, there's already a hunger, and that's why Tashvish Hamita is aser. No, even if there isn't such a catastrophic situation yet, there's no hunger, but just because there's a drought, and we're already up to the middle of Kislev, where we already have a second set of Tanesim, already it carries with it an Isser of Tashvish Hamita, and the Chavetz Chaim says this Isser is so stringent, Va'afilu b'leil tefillah, This Isser would even be if one of these Tanesim fall out on the night that your wife is going to the mikveh, there's still an Isser of Tashrish Hamita, and he brings this down from the Pri Megadim. Ice cut and test, the Mechaber said, U'mispalalin bebate knesiyos. We go to the shuls to daven. Ritzainer loymar, what the Mechaber wants to say, what's the point of the Mechaber saying that we go to the bate knesiyos? Where else should we daven? Explains the Chavetz Chaim Ritzainer loymar. What the Mechaber wants to say is, she'ein moitzian l'rechayva shel ir. We're going to see that there's a later set of Tanesim where we don't gather in the shuls to daven, we go out into the streets to daven, to make more of an impression, more of a hisayrus. But that's not by this set of Tanesim. By this second set of Tanesim on the Tzibur, you still daven in the shuls. Now let's go to Siv Daled. Says the Mechaber, Avru elu v'loy nanu. Let's say we fasted, the Talmidei Chachamim fasted after the 17th of Cheshvan. We had one set of Bahab Tanesim on the Tzibur at the beginning of Kislev. We already had a second set of Bahab Tanesim on the Tzibur in the middle of Kislev. Still no rain, Chas v'Chalila. Still the Rabbeinu Shalom has not answered our tefillas. At that point, says the Mechaber, Bezdin Goizrin Oid Sheva Tainiyos Al HaTzibur. Now Bezdin decrees 7 additional Tanesim on the Tzibur. What are the 7? Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. You have a set of Bahab, that's 3 Tanesim. V'sheni v'chamishi, and the next Monday and Thursday, that's 5. V'sheni v'chamishi, and then the next Monday and Thursday, that's 7. V'sheni. So now you have a total here of 7 Tanesim. You have Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, right? What did I do here? Right? Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. So you have a Monday, Thursday, Monday. And then you have a Thursday and a Monday, and a Thursday and a Monday. 7 Tanesim in a row. V'chol ma she'asar b'shloisha shelifnei elu, asar af be'elu. Now, everything that was asar on the second set of Bahab Tanesim on the Tzibur is asar on these 7 Tanesim. So the Issa Malacha, the Issa Tashrish Hamita, Rechitza, Sicha, Nilos Asandal, Issa Malacha, the same is true. These last 7 Tanesim carry all those Isurim. The Yeserin Elu, and these last 7 Tanesim are more Chomer than the previous set of Bahab. Shemasriyan behen b'shofar ala bracha shemeisifim behem. We blow shofar when we recite the additional brachas in Chazaras Hashatz, which are not delineated here. If you want, it's very interesting. You can take a look at the tour in Siman Tafkuf Ayin Hey over here, and you'll see brought down 6 extra brachas that they add in, and when you make those brachas, you blow shofar. U'mispalelin berechai va'ir. And we don't daven in the beis HaKnesses. We don't daven in the shul. We go outside. Shades of Corona. We go outside to the street to daven. U'mayridin zaken l'haychicham. And we bring in a magid, we bring in a zaken, a Talmid Chacham, to speak to the people and to give them teichacha, to give them musar, and to urge them to do tshuva. U'maysifin sheish brachas betfilas shachris and betfilas hamincha. And we add 6 brachas into the Shemona Esrei by Shachris and Mincha. V'noyalim es hachanuyos. And we close the stores. Ubisheni le'eis erev, on Monday evening, poischin ma'at, oisan hachanuyos hamoichros achilu ushtia. At night, the grocery stores could open up a little bit. The Mishnah Berurah says, what does it mean to open a little bit? They open the door a little bit to show that the store is open Monday evening, so that you could come in, so that you could buy food to break your fast. You're fasting on Monday, so you have to have the ability to buy food. That's on Monday. And on Thursday, Poischin kol hayoim chanuyos hamoichros Michael mipnei kfar Shabbos. On Thursday, the grocery stores could be opened all day because people have to do their shopping for Shabbos. If the grocery store has 2 doors, you should open one and close one to show that today is a tainus and the stores are really supposed to be closed. If in front of the store there's like a platform where they put their wares, The store could open up in the usual manner on Thursday. We don't have to make any kind of hecker. We don't have to close the door partially or keep one door closed to show that it should be closed, because there's this itztava in front of the store, which is either blocking the doors so that people can't see it, or I think others say that by not putting anything out on the itztava, that already makes a hecker. Okay. So basically here in Sif Daled, the Mechaber has laid out for us the halacha of the final 7 tanesim on the tzibur if Nebuch there's a terrible drought, and through all of the first sets of tanesim we haven't been answered. So then there goes a set of 7 tanesim. These 7 tanesim are more chomer than the previous ones. Now already you're closing the stores. Now already you're adding brachas in Shemona Esrei. You're blowing shofar, you're davening outside in the street, you're bringing in a rov to give techacha, to give a shmuz, you're adding brachas in the Shemona Esrei, you're closing the stores. And here we have the exceptions. The stores could be opened a little bit on Monday evenings so that people could buy food to break their fasts Monday night. And on Thursday, the grocery stores could be open l'chvayt Shabbos. But all the other businesses have to be closed. All the other businesses are closed the whole day Monday and the whole day Thursday. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Yud. Umaisif and Sheish brachas. On these 7 tanesim, we add 6 brachas into the Shemona Esrei. Humavur batur. These brachas are delineated in the Torah in Siman Tavkuf Ayin Tes. Ois Katan Yud Aleph v'noyelim es hachanuyos. We close the stores. Ayin b'gvura sari. Take a look at the Sefer Gvura Sari. The Masik, where he concludes, the Sharei Chanuyos shel davar acher. All of the other stores, noyel legamri kalayoim, they're closed the entire day. Bein b'sheni, bein b'chamishi. The Mechaber says that you close the stores. The grocery stores could open up a little bit Monday evening to sell food so people could buy food to break their fast Monday night. And the grocery stores could be open the entire day on Thursday, l'chvayt Shabbos. But the Gvura Sari says the direct implication is that all of the other stores, the hardware stores and everything else, the clothing stores, those are closed the entire day Monday and the entire day Thursday. It's only the grocery stores where they sell food and drink that could be open Monday evening. I've cut in Yud Beis, the lashon of the Mechaber was Poischin Ma'at. They can open up a little bit. What does that mean, to be opened up a little bit? Says the Chavetz Chaim, Dahainu shepeisech tzas telas hakanuyos. You could open up the door a little bit, or you could open up one of the doors. Vein moitzian ma'aba shachanos lachutz. But you don't bring any of the wares outside to the street. This reminds me of times that Erev Pesach was a Sunday where the liquor stores weren't allowed to be opened. But the Yiddish liquor stores knew people have to come buy wine for Daled Kaisis, for Yom Tov, so they would have the gate down 3/4 of the way, and they would have the door opened a little bit outside, so people saw that the store was like really open, and people would come in, and the shopkeeper would say, I'm closed. You want to go take something, you could take something. And people would go get what they need, put the money down on the counter, and walk out. Ois Katan Yud Gimel Michael. So on Thursday, the lashon of the Mechaber was very specific. The lashon of the Mechaber was that ubachamishi on Thursday, poischin kol hayoim chanuyos hamoichros Michael mipnei kvayt Shabbos. On Thursday, the stores that sell food could be opened all day because of Kavod Shabbos. So it was very specific. Stores that sell food. Says the Mishnah Berurah here in Ois Katan Yud Gimel Michael, Aval shel shtia, but stores that sell beverages, the Yechaylu L'Knoisai be'erev Shabbos, that you could buy on Erev Shabbos because they don't need preparation. Food needs preparation. So you want to buy on Thursday so you have time to prepare. But beverages don't need preparation, so buy them on Friday. Light, those shouldn't open on Thursday. Let them open up on Friday when it's not a fast day. Ois Katan Yud Daled, Itztava, the Mechaber said if there's an Itztava in front of the store, so over here the Mishnah Berurah says an Itztava is a kisei, some kind of big chair. So that the doorway that goes from the store to the Rishus Harabim is blocked. And therefore, if the door is fully open, people aren't going to realize. Okay, so far the Mechaber has laid out the series of Tanesim that you fast if there's no rain in Eretz Yisroel. Now we go to Sifhei. Ubrais umenikais methanois. Expectant women and nursing women fast during these tanesim. Now, which tanesim? Not all of the tanesim. Explains the Mechaber. Avaloi b'shalosh rishonos, not the first set of bahab that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur. So let's remember which set we're talking about. 17th of Cheshvan, only the Talmidei Chachamim fast bahab. After that, if there's no rain, Bezdin is geyser the first set of bahab tanesim on the tzibur. The menikos, the mu'ubaris and the menikos, the expectant women and the nursing women do not have to fast that first set of bahab that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur. V'loi b'sheva achronos. They also don't have to fast the final 7 tanesim that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur. And we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah why this is so. So they're only fasting the middle set of bahab. That's when the expectant women and the nursing women have to fast. The middle set of bahab that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur. Umiu lo yochlu ela kedei kiyum havlad. However, when they are allowed to eat during the first bahab and during the last 7, they should only eat what they need to eat to take care of their baby, either their nursing baby or their unborn baby. So they should eat what they need to eat for the welfare of either the fetus or the nursing child. But the Ramah points out that it is forbidden for them to decide that they want to be machmir and they want to fast. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Tesvav. Misanois, the expectant women and the nursing women have to fast. Be'elu shalosh taniyos emtsoyos, only by the middle set of bahab. Is cut in Tezayin, avaloi, but not by the first set of bahab and not by the final 7 tanesim. Why is this so? Explains the Chavetz Chaim. The b'shalosh rishonos, by the first set of bahab that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur, lo takev rugzei kulei hai. At this point, we don't look and see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is so angry at Klal Yisrael. Okay, there's been a delay in the expected rainfall, so the Talmidei Chachamim fasted bahab and they weren't answered. Then we're geyser a set of bahab on the tzibur. So at this point, we don't see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is so angry at Klal Yisrael that we should go make expectant women and nursing mothers fast. V'achronos, and as far as the final 7 tanesim, kevan de shiva ninu, since we're talking about 7 tanesim, loimotzi ubara isumenikos lamekambahu. That's too much for expectant women and nursing women to expect them to fast for 7 tanesim. That's too much. They can't do it. Now the Chavetz Chaim says, hold on a second. So because it's 7 tanesim and it's very difficult, so they shouldn't fast at all? Says the Chavetz Chaim, the kasha. This seems to be very schwer. Yisanu al kol panim shalish tainiyos. So you want to tell me that they don't have to fast the final 7 because 7 tanesim is too much. Fine. So let them fast the first 3 days of the final 7. We don't say that 3 days is too much. They're fasting the middle set of bahab. That we're saying that the ubaris and the menikos do fast. So if they could fast the middle set of bahab, let them fast the first 3 tanesim, the first bahab of the final 7. Why are you saying that they shouldn't fast any of the tanesim of the final 7? So v'tzarech loymar, the Chavetz Chaim says, you're forced to say, in order to answer this, kevan d'efshar lehisanos kulam, that since we know that it's impossible for the mu'ubaris and the menikos to fast all 7 days of the final 7, ein mechuyavim lehisanos klal. The final set of 7 tanesim is a set. It's not 7 individual tanesim. It is a set of 7 tanesim. And the mu'ubaris and the menikos cannot do 7 tanesim. So there's no concept of, if I can't do all 7, I'll do 3. It's all or nothing. It's similar to 1 day of a tainus. And when they're geyser a tainus on the tzibur, if it's a tainus that certain people can't do, so then they're not mechuyev to do the tainus. We don't go ahead and pull somebody in for a physical and say, okay, you could fast 3 hours, so you fast 3 hours. No, there's no such thing. It's all or nothing. So to here, it's a set of 7 tanesim. If we say that mubaris and minikais cannot do 7 tanesim, then they don't do any of it. They don't do 3. They don't do any. Okay. The Ramah said over here at the end of Sifhei, Va'asa lehen lahakmiru lehisanois, it is forbidden for the mubaris and the minikais to decide that they want to be machmir and they want to fast. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katan Yudzayin ulehisanois ki hural avlad. They can't fast because it could harm the child. Im tzibur gazru shalish tainiyos, if the tzibur is taka geyser 3 tanesim, so let's say the first set of bahab that the geyser on the tzibur, or the middle set, v'yesh adam chalosh she'eni yochal lehisanis kulam, and there's somebody who doesn't have the ability to fast 3 tanesim, ain't tzarich lehisanis klal. Again, the same way we say that by the mubaris and the minikais, that since it's a gzeira of 7 tanesim, if it's too much for them, they're not mechuyev to fast at all. So too, by the other series of tanesim, the bahab series, if there's an old man or an ill individual, and it's too much for him to fast 3 days, then he's potter. He doesn't have to fast the 3 days. And over here, the Chavetz Chaim closes out the Ois Katan, and he says, V'tzarech yun. This comes from a Magen Avram, but you see that the Chavetz Chaim is not so comfortable with this whole lumdus of all or nothing. And that's why he closes out over here. He says, V'tzarech yun, we have to look into this a little bit. Okay, let's continue. Sivav, near the bottom of Mem Chesam and Beis. Akar shegazru shloish esrei tainus elu. After Bezdin is geyser these 13 tanesim. Which 13 tanesim? So you have the first series of bahab that you geyser on the tzibur, not the original 3 of the Talmidei Chachamim. That doesn't count. You have the first 3 bahab that Bezdin is geyser on the tzibur. Then you have the next set of 3, that's 6. Then you have the final 7. So that's 13 tanesim. After Bezdin is geyser these 13 tanesim, im loy nanu, if unfortunately they're not answered with rain, ein geyser noid, we don't decree any more tanesim. V'hani mili kishem esanin ala geshamim, this is only true when we're fasting for rain, lefisha kisha avru elu, because once these 13 tanesim and this time period has passed, kvar avru zman geshamim, now it's too late for rain. The rainy season has passed. Ve'ein behem tayelas. Now, what do you want rain for? We're not talking about rain for drinking water. We're going to discuss that later. Over here, we're talking about rain to grow the crops. Once this time period has passed, if it rains now, it's not helping the crops. The crops missed the rainy season and they're wiped out. So now there's no point to fast for rain for crops anymore. But if we're fasting not because of a drought, if the tzibur is fasting for some other type of tzara, then you have to fast until the tzara is gone. There's no magical time period. You're fasting because of a pandemic. So once you reach Rosh Chodesh Kislev, stop fasting. No, if you're not answered, you're not answered. You have to keep on fasting. Siv Zayin. There's no Mishnah Berurah on Sivav. Siv Zayin. Kishemisanin ala geshamim. If we're fasting because of a drought, we're fasting for rain. And we've fasted these 13 tanesim, and there has not yet been an answer. At that point, we have to start to restrict conducting business, because it's true, we're not going to be geyser tanesim anymore, because we don't need the rain anymore. But we see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is upset. So mematin b'masa umatan, we start to restrict business. Ubebinyan shel simcha, and we restrict any kind of construction that's being done for simcha purposes, and we'll have to explain what that means. Ela imken kaslai noita lipile, unless you're talking about a wall that's in danger of collapsing. Umematin be'erisin v'nisuin, and we also cut back, which the Mishnah Berurah says we don't do any. Umamatin be'erisin v'nisuin. Nobody gets married. Ela im loikia mitzvahs peri of arivya, unless we're talking about somebody who has not yet been mekayim the mitzvah of peri revu, he has no children, then we allow him to get married at this time period. Umamatin b'shela shalom in adam lechaveroi, and we restrict greeting people in the street. The Talmidei Chachamim lo yishalu shalom. Talmidei Chachamim don't greet anybody at all. Ela kinizufin v'chimenudin lamakim. They walk around like in Avelus. They walk around in recognition of the fact that it's as if they're in cherem from the Rebbeinu Shalom, because they see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is angry at Klal Yisrael. So they're menudin, they're in cherem, and they're nizufin. They're pushed away, chas v'chalila lo aleinu, by the Rebbeinu Shalom. So they walk around dejected and rejected. V'amaretz shenasan lehem shalom. If an amaretz comes to a Talmid Chacham, shalom aleichem, meshiven loy b'safa rafa v'koved rosh. They should respond very softly and very somberly. So somebody comes to a Talmid Chacham, shalom aleichem, Reb Yid. They answer back, aleichem shalom. Very somber, very quiet. The Talmidei Chachamim levadam, and the Talmidei Chachamim chayzrim umisanim sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. They continue to fast. Bahab ad sheyetze Nisan shel tekufa, until tekufas Nisan has passed. What is tekufas Nisan? So you have to understand, we're dealing here with fasting for rain. Now rain and the weather, that's governed by seasons. Seasons are governed by the solar calendar, not by the lunar calendar. So we follow a lunar calendar, but the lunar calendar is not aligned with the solar calendar. We know that the lunar calendar is 11 days shorter than the solar calendar, and that's why every year we're losing 11 days on the solar calendar, and eventually we have to have an Iber. We have to make an Adar Sheni to extend the lunar year to catch the lunar calendar up to the solar calendar. Otherwise, over the march of time, we would be totally out of whack with the seasons. You would have Pesach ending up in the wrong season. It wouldn't end up in the spring. And Pesach has to be Chodesh HaAviv. It has to be in the spring. So we artificially keep the lunar calendar aligned with the solar calendar and the seasons. But that's why when we're discussing rainfall, we can't really discuss the time period of rainfall in lunar months, because they're not really well aligned. So we have something called Tekufas Nisan, the season of Nisan, and that we align with the solar calendar. Now, when does Tekufas, what does this mean when the Mechaber says, Ad sheyetze Nisan shel Tekufa, when Tekufas Nisan is over? It doesn't mean when the month of Nisan is over. It means when the season of Nisan is over, which the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us that means 30 days after the beginning of Tekufas Nisan. 30 days after the season of Nisan begins, that's the end of Tekufas Nisan. How do we know when Tekufas Nisan begins? We're going to see that shortly. Okay, so what did we say here so far in Siv Zayin? We said the 13 Tanesim are over. We're not going to be geyser any more Tanesim for rain. However, we do have certain restrictions. We restrict certain types of business activity. We restrict certain types of construction activity. We restrict marriage. We restrict greeting people in the street. Then we said that the Talmidei Chachamim do continue to fast until the end of Tekufas Nisan. Now let's finish off this sif. Continues the Mechaber. Umutarin lechol balayla. The Talmidei Chachamim are fasting, but they're allowed to eat at night. Uve malacha, and there's no isser malacha on their tanesim. Ubishara dvarim, there's no isser of tashmish hamita, rechitza, sicha, nilas asandal. Umafsikin b'rosh chodesh Chanukah upurim, and the Talmidei Chachamim would not fast if one of these fast days ended up on a Rosh Chodesh or Chanukah, which it won't, or Purim. Yotza Nisan shel Tkufa, once Tkufas Nisan has passed, that's when the constellation, the mazel of the ox, the mazel of Shar, begins to show up in the sky. That's how we know that it is now, Tkufas Nisan is now over. Tkufas Nisan, the season of Nisan begins when the sun is located in the constellation of the Tleh, in the mazel Tleh, the mazel of the sheep. That's the beginning of Tkufas Nisan. The next mazel is the mazel of Shor. That comes up 30 days later. So the mazel of Tleh marks the beginning of Tkufas Nisan. The the Mazel of Shar marks the end of Tkufas Nisan. At that point, Ein Misan and Oid. Now there are no more Tanesim, not for the Tzibor, not for Talmidei Chachamim. She'ein HaGeshamim B'zman Hazeh Elo Siman Klala. Because at this point, if it rains, it's only a Siman Klala. Hayav Lo Yardu Kol Ikar B'Tchilas Hashana. Since we didn't have any rain at the beginning of the year, now at this point, rain is only a Siman Klala. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Mem Tes Amud Aleph Eis Katan Yud Ches. We have to restrict, the Mechaber said, Mematin b'masa umatan, we restrict business activity, ubebinyan shel simcha, and construction of simcha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Yud Ches shel simcha, construction of simcha. What's construction of simcha? So first, the Mishnah Berurah says, lav dafka. This is imprecise. When the Mechaber says that we only restrict binyan shel simcha, not so fast. Elohu adin l'chol binyan, she'ein tzarich. We restrict all construction activity that's not required. Elo l'noyu l'harvacha ba'alma. Anything that you're building that's only for beauty or for profit. So if you want to go out in front of your house and make a nice retaining wall for a flower bed, or you want to go out back and you want to go build a deck, that's for noi, that's for harvacha. All of that kind of construction activity we restrict. What kind of construction is mutter? If you need more room in your house and you want to build another bedroom, so that's not lenoi and harvacha. That's something you need for your dira. That would be mutter. V'da'oid, and you should know, furthermore, says the Chavetz Chaim, the shel simcha, the phrase in the Mechaber, shel simcha, kai gama masa umatan. It also goes back to what the Mechaber said, that we restrict business activity. We only restrict business activity of simcha. We don't restrict all business activity. We restrict business activity of simcha. If you are planning a chasana and you're going to outfit the new apartment, you're going to buy stuff for the chasana, that's masu matan shel simcha. That's what we restrict. V'ayin b'simen tavkuf non aleph siv beis of Mishnah Berurah sham midinim elu. He sends us back to the halacha of the 9 days. And we paskin during the 9 days, we don't restrict all business activity. You're allowed to run your business and you're allowed to do shopping during the 9 days. We restrict certain things. We restrict business activity of simcha. That's what we restrict. So to here, that's what we restrict when it comes to business. Now here we have a very strange Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Yud Tes. Let's remember what we just said. We just said that it's not only binyan shel simcha. It's not only construction of simcha that's aser. You see, there's a machlokes rishonim. There's a machlokes the Rambam and the Ran and the Rosh. The Rosh learns that the only type of construction that's aser during this time period after the 13 Tanesim is binyan shel simcha, which the Rosh says, what's binyan shel simcha? You want to build a chuppah for your son. You want to build a place to make the chasana. That's a binyan shel simcha. So that you're not allowed to do. The Rambam and the Ran say what the Mishnah Berurah just said over here in Eis Katan Yud Ches. The Rambam and the Ran say, no. It's much more chamer than that. We restrict any construction that's not strictly necessary. Any construction of Noi and Harvacha is aser. Okay, that's what the Mishnah Berurah told me in Eis Katan Yud Ches. He went with the Rambam and the Ran, that we don't only aser binyan shel simcha, we aser all binyan, unless it's strictly necessary. That was Eis Katan Yud Ches. Now in Eis Katan Yud Tes, he's going on the Ramah. The Ramah said, Eli in kain kaslai noita lipol. Construction is aser unless you have a wall that's collapsing. Says the Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Yud Tes, kaslai, what wall are we talking about? Shel binyan simcha, kegoin beis chastos libnoi, va'afilu ein beis hakana. Here in Eis Katan Yud Tes, the Mishnah Berurah seems to be going with the Rosh. And you could indeed see in the Sharet Zion, in Eis Katan Yud Zayin, he brings down the Rosh. So over here in the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Katan Yud Zayin, the Mishnah Berurah tells me when the Ramah says that there's an exception to the restriction of binyan shel simcha, the exception is that if a wall is collapsing, you're allowed to repair it, you're allowed to reinforce it. That's talking about a binyan shel simcha. For instance, you're building a chuppah for your son. Why is he suddenly going like the Rosh? Why isn't he going like the Rambam and the Ran? He should say, if you have a binyan of noi and harvacha, if you were building a porch on the back of your house, if you were building a patio in your backyard, which we said you're not allowed to do during this time period, according to the Rambam and the Ran, right? But if the kaisla is noita, if the wall of your if the railing of your porch is falling down, then you could reinforce it. But that's not what he says. He goes with the rush over here in Yud Tes, and he says it's talking about a chuppah. So that's a little bit odd. I don't have a good answer. Eis katan chaf umematin be'erisin. The Mechaber said that we restrict marriage. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what does it mean to restrict marriage? Mematin. Mematin means to make less. What does that mean? Pirish she'ein marasin klal. We don't get married. Va'ayin bebir halacha. Very strange also over here. Eis katan chaf. Ayin bebir halacha. Guess what? There is no bir halacha. There's no bir halacha on this entire Siman. So I don't know what this means here. Ayin bebir halacha. Eis katan chaf aleph. Mazal hashar. How do you know when Tekufas Nisan is over? When you reach Mazal Hashar, V'hainu shloishim yom la'achar shenefelas Tekufas Nisan, the Mazal Shar comes up 30 days after the beginning of Tekufas Nisan. Tekufas Nisan is Mazal Tleh. So when Mazal Tleh is up, that's Tekufas Nisan. 30 days later is Mazal Shar. That's the end of Tekufas Nisan. Okay, we're going to stop over here with Sivches. So slowly but surely we are gaining ground. So hopefully soon we will be caught up on the Dirshu schedule. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The exclusive limud HaTorah should be Megan and Gans Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shem should send Yeshua's Refuas and Pradasa to all those in need. A special wish for Refuah Shalema to Shlomo Zalman ben Mesha, Menachem Ayi ben Dini Yehudis, and Yisrael Tzvi ben Reza ben Ruchama Edel Reza. Be well.